This video is designed to support educators in creating quality kindergarten classroom environments. It illustrates how effective teachers can plan and implement a classroom design that supports children of all abilities and language backgrounds in their early learning stages of development. The kindergarten classroom is a place where children are actively engaged in creating meaning. The room itself and the spaces or learning centers in the room should invite children to explore, converse, inquire, build, and create individually, and is a part of the language-diverse classroom community. It is particularly important that the schedule for kindergarten students includes a healthy balance of cooperative work in learning centers, independent work, whole group instruction, and opportunities for free play and movement activities. Opportunities for sustained play are also essential in the kindergarten classroom, as these allow children to develop their attention, memory, self-regulation, and problem-solving skills.
Play in kindergarten is really where they develop their communication with other peers and use the tools that we're giving them and try them during play.
Younger children make the biggest gains if we are providing them with the right conditions for learning, if we are giving them a rich experience, if we're fostering a good love for what school is all about and what learning is all about, and we're giving them awesome exposure to great models for learning.
The 21st century skills are really born, in my opinion, out of the playtime because of that collaboration and the communication. So people are finding that, well, you know, they did so well at that time. They were so energetic. They were so involved that their vocabulary was increased because of all that play and that language.
Kindergarten classrooms should be set up in learning centers including blocks, math and manipulatives, dramatic play, creative arts, literacy and writing, and science and nature. These learning centers should be fully integrated into the classroom, creating a play environment that is literacy-rich, multilingual, and recognizes and acknowledges children with different learning styles and abilities.
There is a lot of thinking that goes behind setting up learning centers to make them an important part of our day. The children's development and all the aspects that make up a whole child. So their social development, emotional development, their motor development and language development are all considerations when choosing centers.
Flexible seating allows children to move about the classroom while participating in learning centers. Some tables may be low to the ground to support students sitting on pillows or mats. Flexible spaces can also be created by using standing tables throughout the classroom. Furnishings can be placed to create barriers and mark clearly defined interest areas. Learning centers must be responsive to the goals and objectives of individualized education programs for students with disabilities.
We have different kinds of learners today. They need to be interactive. They need to be able to move around. They need to be able to have environments that assimilate, ultimately, perhaps what the workplace might look like. And the earliest way to do that is in our primary years. So active learning centers, flexible seating in our primary classes, all of these different resources ultimately, in our opinion, will help prepare our scholars.
I've created purposeful play centers in my classroom by honestly removing some of the furniture. I had lots of tables. I was provided with them when I first came into the classroom, and I felt like I needed to use them, like have a table at the writing area and have a table at every area. And along the way and through my journey as a teacher, it's become, and just in observing kids, it's become very evident that they stand to do work at times, they lay down on their bellies to do work, they sometimes prefer to sit. So really it was offering flexible choices so that they can do a lot of this work just about anywhere.
When teachers are incorporating centers and choice time, it is important to include multicultural and multilingual props and literature, and be creative with gathering resources.
It's about building their vocabulary and their understanding, being able to learn in your native language as we're working, as we're playing, as we're communicating.
Multilingual families are a valuable resource for authentic language information and materials. They can be included in the process of labeling items in the classroom and in each center. Labels with print and pictures support students in English and home language development. It allows them to embrace multilingualism while matching object to print.
The students have complete access to all the materials in the room. They also make sure that all the materials are labeled, which generates that reading piece, because although they may not be overtly reading, but they'll see that word and they'll familiarize themselves with that word, that shape means that particular object.
Teachers assume many roles as they design learning environments, arrange materials in a variety of learning centers, and plan daily routines and transitions. Teachers arrange the learning environment to influence what and how children learn. When setting up centers, teachers should plan for intentional, play-based learning activities daily. Kindergarten students benefit from play-based learning strategies that allow them to interact with the classroom environment while promoting higher-level thinking and problem-solving skills. These activities also create opportunities for students to interact with peers and practice their collaboration and communication skills.
The people that are the most sought after are the ones that know how to inspire and cooperate and collaborate, and who are able to work on their own and see a problem and have some initiative and figure out how to problem solve. And so we're really trying to help our kids be able to be those kinds of adults.
As teachers design learning centers, it is important that they are mindful of the various strengths, skills, and abilities, languages, cultures, and developmental levels of all students, keeping in mind the goals and objectives specific to students with disabilities. They should provide materials and learning opportunities that are intentional and meaningful, rather than worksheets and rote activities that have little meaning to young children.
There's also how children express themselves. Like some kids do it best through building or artistically or through language. So when we structure the learning center's time, we try to include all those various aspects that make up a child. So sometimes there might be the pretend corner, or there might be the fine motor station integrated into that time.
We want to make sure we're utilizing all of the areas, and we have different centers, and we like to keep them large so that there's ample space and that more students can fit.
As the year progresses, we slowly introduce each center one at a time, and so our whole choice time, for example, or our whole writer's block will be about opening that center and exploring it and explaining how to use it. The teachers will model doing that, and then we have the children come up and model that as well, and then that's introduced in their small groups, and it's facilitated by one of the adults.
Kindergarten Learning Centers. Blocks. Block play allows children to have authentic experiences that support the development of a variety of skills, including oral language, creative and critical thinking skills, spatial awareness, mathematical concepts, and social-emotional regulation. A well-planned block area can also provide many STEAM opportunities.
Well, tell me what's the difference between the motor truck and the fire truck?
As children create structures, they negotiate how to make blocks balance, how they can stabilize a structure to prevent it from falling over, identify shapes, learn new action words and positional words, create with others, describe what they are doing, and problem solve. Math and manipulatives. Math areas must provide students with a variety of workspaces, including tables and floor areas. Shelving to hold labeled bins with a variety of manipulatives and objects is essential to providing daily access to students. Teachers support learning by providing visual aids such as number lines, lists, simple graphs, and graphic organizers. A selection of books and texts that feature mathematical concepts should be regularly rotated throughout the year. Dramatic play. The Dramatic Play Center must be a safe and accepting place where students can engage in conversations, act out situations, and experiment with language. This is an excellent opportunity for students to demonstrate their language diverse skills. Students' experience with dramatic play allows abstract ideas to become concrete understanding. Thematic items, including props and clothing, should be rotated throughout the year. Teachers can support student learning by encouraging peer interactions as well as by asking questions that invite students to use higher-level thinking skills and apply or evaluate knowledge learned. Creative arts. Children in kindergarten should be encouraged to explore freely with creative arts materials. It is essential that there be plenty of materials for students to explore and create freely. Materials can be theme-based or topic-relevant and should be rotated to encourage students to work with new items. Teachers can solicit help from students' family members to introduce new tools in their home languages. Students can brainstorm to develop a list of needed materials for a theme or topic. Creative arts experiences naturally connect to all academic areas. These experiences must reflect the goals and objectives of individualized education programs for students with disabilities. Literacy and writing. The Literacy Center is a designated area that provides opportunities for children to fully engage with books, text materials, writing materials, and technology tools in English and in their home languages. A rich collection of developmentally appropriate books provides a variety of literacy opportunities for children. Providing books in a student's home language is essential to a quality literacy center. Children role play, present with felt boards or drawings to enhance comprehension and vocabulary development in the Literacy Center. Teachers can work with small groups of children or individual children to build specific skills while differentiating instruction and providing home language support in the Literacy Center. Teachers should encourage students to share details when discussing literature, allowing them to expand their thinking and understanding. To meet English and multilingual literacy goals, teachers can create activities where children can work independently or in a small group on specific projects. Writing centers should always include a variety of paper and writing materials along with resources and opportunities to promote English and home language development. Thematic materials, word walls, or word rings should be relevant, multilingual, and updated regularly. Picture dictionaries and thematic books, both fiction and nonfiction, in English and the students' home languages should also be added. It is important for writing in kindergarten to be primarily focused on student interest while encouraging multilingual learners to write in their home languages as well as in English.
The student inventories that my teachers take every year in September usually guide how they're going to instruct children, so that the themes that they're interested in are present in what they're doing, and so that it does provide that hook into the curriculum.
It's really important. If you're interested in something, you learn more, you comprehend more, you become more engaged.
Students are beginning to put thoughts to paper in drawings, labels, and beginning sentences. Teachers can support kindergarten students by including materials that are theme-based, student interest-driven, and multilingual. A cozy area is an important part of the kindergarten classroom. This can be a separate part of the classroom or incorporated into the Literacy Center. The cozy area may include soft furnishings, such as a couch or pillows. Science and nature. Science and nature areas should represent thematic units and include materials that support students' interests, abilities, and languages. Kindergarten students are naturally curious. Science centers encourage them to engage in experiments, problem solve, talk about, and record observations. Workplaces should be planned to allow students to work independently or in a small group to make observations or conduct experiments. There should be space to display collections and student experiments. A selection of games, reading materials, and texts in English and in the students' home languages should be included in the science area. Student work. When student work is displayed, it tells the students that their work is valued and gives them the sense that the classroom space is theirs. Art is a child's first symbolic communication, and art experiences should be available every day to all students. Daily encounters with open-ended art materials help children explore and develop their sense of the world.
Our students should be proud of the work that they do, and people should be able to see it. Our teachers should be excited about what they're teaching, and it should be visible in the classroom, especially with little guys.
Daily schedule. The structure of the day in kindergarten should include 45 to 60 minutes for students to self-select learning centers. Learning center time should not be a reward at the end of the day, rather a fully integrated and connected support to the curriculum. The daily schedule should allow students to be actively engaged in small and large group hands-on activities.
The centers are more of a choice. I'm not dictating to children where they have to go each and every day. They're given a choice, and I think when children are given a choice and they want to go to a place in the room that's really engaging to them, they're happy, they're engaged when we're giving them lots of choices, and we're not dictating to them what they have to do each and every day.
During center time, teachers should plan for meaningful interactions and opportunities for extended conversations with all students. Throughout the day, multilingual students should be encouraged to converse in the language or languages they feel most comfortable speaking. Teachers should converse with students in their home languages when possible, as well as in English.
While they're learning English, they are maintaining their native language, which is very important. And it's important for them to be able to continue to communicate with their families.
It's a great opportunity for them to practice their communication skills. It's a way for them to interact with their peers, to learn the language, and what better time than doing choice time.
They're actually going in a direction that is of interest to them with teacher guidance. Teachers are really facilitating that. They're asking questions that are open-ended. They're offering materials for the students to see what piques their interest, but ultimately the students get to select.
Recess or free play time should be scheduled daily in kindergarten. Individuals with special needs must easily access indoor and outdoor spaces and the materials they include.
We see play as an important part of our instructional program, and we also understand that there has to be time for children to have free play.
Children are learning when they explore, discover, investigate, role play, and use materials and languages in creative ways. Allowing students to choose the direction of their learning inspires them to build on their play and deepen understanding of concepts. Through discovery, children develop critical thinking skills and problem-solving strategies. Children develop leadership and collaboration skills while engaging in play-based learning opportunities. These strategies are an essential part of the kindergarten classroom environment.
One of the critical goals for them is to provide experiences and opportunities where they really learn to become confident in taking risks and making decisions as mathematicians, as builders, as artists, as writers, and authors and illustrators, and also as a member of a classroom community.
This is a building filled with children, and it needs to look like a building that's filled with children. Books should be everywhere, words should be everywhere, color should be everywhere. My expectation is that every room, every space in school should be welcoming.
We are always welcomed at the door. They remember your names. Anytime there's a new program or something that may be available to us or to the students, we are made aware of it immediately. So there's constant communication back and forth.
If we can influence our little ones when they are that young, we're really setting them up for true success as learners in the years to come.
Children learn the best when they feel safe. And if they feel safe in a classroom and they feel accepted and they feel honored, then they're going to learn, and they're going to want to learn more and more and more, and they're going to want to teach. And that is just the most beautiful, magical way to begin their education.